Welcome everyone. Before I start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you get all our new summaries. And let's begin our film. Our film begins with the arrival of the most dangerous American gang at their warehouse to prepare a large shipment of drugs demanded of them. We see the leader of this gang, whose name is Denny, personally checking the merchandise. With him is Dalton, his right-hand man, who informs him that the drug delivery must be carried out exactly as he instructed to stay under the police radar. However, they are interrupted by Denny's hot-headed son, Jimmy, who urges his father to deliver the goods the way he suggested, as it's safer. But Denny refuses, telling him that while he is his son, he trusts Dalton completely, and therefore, the handover will be through him. Outside their warehouse, we see a special forces team monitoring the entire area. The first thing they do is cut the power to the entire warehouse, so no one from the gang can escape. Then they storm the place and start subduing them at gunpoint after surrounding them from all sides. However, one gang member tries to open fire on them, and surprisingly, Dalton stops him. It is then revealed that he is actually an officer named Brocker. The moment Denny finds out, he becomes enraged and tries to kill him, but Brocker engages him in a gunfight until their weapons are empty. A fierce battle erupts between the special forces and the gang members. Nevertheless, Denny and his son manage to escape from the scene in their car, but Brocker pursues them on a motorcycle. Using his wits, he manages to disable their car before they can get away. We see him pulling Denny out of the car and pinning him to the ground, but he finds Jimmy getting out behind him, trying to kill him for his betrayal. Brocker orders him to drop his weapon because there's no way out, but when Jimmy refuses, Brocker shoots him in the leg. However, Jimmy was determined to get his revenge, so the police open fire on him until his body is riddled with bullets and he is killed. At that moment, Denny explodes with anger and tells Brocker that he and his entire family will die in the most horrific ways because he killed his son, Jimmy. Of course, Brocker is deeply distressed because he is now threatened for life, so he leaves the scene without even responding to his colleagues. 2 years later, we see Brocker fixing the wooden stairs of his new house, which is located in a secluded area away from the city. We learn that after the incident with Jimmy, he decided to retire from his career as an officer to focus on raising his daughter, Maddie, after her mother's death. We see Maddie playing at her school, with just a little time left before she returns to her classroom. However, her bully classmate, Dave, comes and starts harassing her. He takes her cap and throws it on the ground to show off in front of his friends. Maddie respectfully asks him to return the cap, but he refuses and continues to provoke her until she loses her temper. She punches him and knocks him to the ground, and then she takes her cap and goes to her teacher, who immediately calls her father and asks him to come right away. So Brocker quickly heads over there. As soon as he arrives, he sees the boy his daughter hit, whose face is completely messed up, and he also finds the boy's mother, whose name is Jessie, causing a huge scene, and has brought a police officer with her to get justice for her son, whose face got smashed. At that moment, the principal, whose name is Susan, arrives and takes him to the room where his daughter is. Brocker sits with her and asks her what happened. She tells him that she warned him multiple times before she broke his bone like that. Susan then asks him who taught his daughter those moves. Brocker tells her that he taught her how to defend herself because they live in a secluded place. Susan is very surprised by this and asks Maddie to leave them alone for a bit. When she leaves, Susan asks him why he chose to live here. Brocker tells her that his wife passed away a year ago and that he came here for peace and quiet with his daughter, Maddie. After they finish talking, Brocker takes his daughter and leaves. However, Jessie and her husband Jimmy are waiting for them outside the school. We see the officer trying to calm them down, but Jessie eggs her husband on to go hit Brocker and get justice for their son. Brocker speaks to him politely and explains that his daughter wasn't in the wrong, but the man gets even angrier and tries to hit Brocker. Because of that, Brocker slams his face into the ground in seconds in front of his family. Jessie is shocked by what happened to her husband, and the officer barely manages to pull him from under Brocker's grip and orders him to take his family and leave. Afterwards, the officer goes to ask Brocker what he does for a living and how long he's been living in the town, but Brocker refuses to answer his questions and says, "Is there a problem?" The officer then says he's just making conversation and tells him to take his daughter and leave to avoid further trouble. Brocker goes to check on his daughter, who tells him that the whole school saw what he did. He is, of course, very upset. He gets in the car and drives away with his daughter from the place. Later, we see Jessie coming down hard on her husband Jimmy after he got beaten and humiliated by Brocker. Jimmy gets angry at her and says Brocker caught him off guard, and he tells her that next time he'll break his bones. But Jessie tells him, "I was wrong to rely on you." Their son tries to calm her down and says they were both caught off guard by the girl and her father. This makes Jessie even angrier, and she tells her husband that she needs to meet her brother, whose name is Gator. At that moment, Jimmy gets upset and says, "This is a family matter, and not worth getting her brother involved." Jessie makes him understand that her brother is family, and that he's the one who can get justice for their son. Let's now see this brother of hers, who is a major dealer. He's returning to his house, but finds a strange car parked in front of his warehouse, so he gets out with a baseball bat and goes in to see what's going on. He finds some teenagers sitting there using drugs. Without any warning, he breaks one of their bones and kicks them out of his warehouse like dogs, warning them that next time he will destroy their entire lives. At night, we see Brocker with his daughter, Maddie. He tells her he is very proud of her for being able to defend herself. But Maddie then laughs and changes the subject to ask his opinion about her teacher, Susan. He tells her that she is sweet, just like her, and tells her to go to sleep so she doesn't get tired before school in the morning. Elsewhere, when Gator returns to his house, he finds his sister Jessie waiting for him there. He immediately knows there's trouble. Indeed, Jessie tells him what happened with her son and husband and asks him to teach Brocker and his daughter a lesson so they never do it again. Surprisingly, she also asks him to give her some drugs to calm down and be able to sleep. Gator tells her he will deal with Brocker and goes to get the drugs for her, but he makes it clear he won't give her more so she can quit. The next day, Brocker is watching his daughter Maddie as she rides her horse around their farm, just as he taught her when she was little. Afterwards, he takes her to school, and there they see Susan getting out of her car. They both smile at each other, and it's clear there is some mutual attraction. We see Brocker a little later talking to Susan and asking her to help him organize his daughter Maddie's birthday party because she likes her very much. Susan agrees, but she asks him to resolve the issue with Jessie and her husband Jimmy because the matter isn't that serious, and they are adults, not children. Of course, Brocker agrees and tells her, "I'll do anything for your beautiful eyes." He leaves her and goes to Jimmy's workplace to reconcile with him. Jimmy can't believe it at first and asks Brocker to first apologize to his wife and son. Brocker agrees and explains that he doesn't like trouble and is just here to live in peace with his daughter. Then he leaves Jimmy and walks away. A little later, Brocker is at the gas station, filling up his car, when a car pulls up beside him and two tough-looking guys get out. They try to hassle him. Unfortunately for them, they don't know Brocker is a professional fighter, and he breaks the gas pump over them. He asks one of them who sent them, but he doesn't get an answer, so he leaves them lying on the ground and goes to pick up his daughter Maddie from school to take her home. On the way, Maddie notices the wounds on his hand. When she asks, he lies to her and says he was training. Meanwhile, inside Gator's drug-making warehouse, one of his men calls him and tells him that Brocker wiped the floor with them and broke their bones. Gator gets very angry because he hadn't imagined he was that strong and decides to take revenge on him personally. We return to Brocker on his way home, but he finds the police officer standing there. The officer tells him to get out of the car and asks him about what happened at the gas station. Brocker explains to him that, as usual, he was defending himself. But the officer says, "What's your story exactly? Are you a former cop, a soldier, or a criminal? Understand me?" Here, Brocker tells him he was a soldier in the army and doesn't need to say more. At that point, the officer has no choice but to let him go because there's no evidence against him. Another time, Brocker takes his daughter to the forest next to their farm so they can race each other on their horses. Meanwhile, we see Gator, who has arrived at Brocker's farm. He goes and slashes the tires of Brocker's car with a knife, then breaks into the house. He keeps walking until he reaches Maddie's room, where he steals a toy from her bed. After that, he goes down to the basement of the house and rummages through a file box in front of him until he finds Brocker's file. As soon as he opens it, he is shocked to discover that Brocker was actually a police officer, and that his last operation was arresting Denny's gang leader, and that he was the one who killed his son. We see Brocker returning home after letting his daughter win the race. He keeps calling for their cat, named Loser, and Gator, who sees their cat walking in front of him, decides to take it with him and leaves. At night, Maddie goes to tell her father that she can't find her cat and that she won't be able to sleep without it. Brocker comforts her and assures her he will look for it until he finds it. He asks her to sleep so she can go to school in the morning. When he steps outside to look for the cat, he discovers that his car's tires have been slashed. While searching for the cat, he finds the severed head of his daughter's doll in front of him. He becomes certain that someone entered the house while they were out. At this time, Gator calls a woman who works in the city named Charles and asks her to come see him the next day because he needs her for a job. The next day, we see Brocker going to Jimmy's workplace because he suspects he was the one who broke into his house. He threatens him, saying if he does it again, he'll make him pay, and demands he return the cat he stole from his daughter, Maddie. Jimmy is just standing there like an idiot, not understanding anything and unable to even respond. Elsewhere, Charles goes to meet Gator, who tells her that he has managed to identify the person who killed Denny's son. He explains to her that if he delivers him as a gift to Denny's men, Denny will let him distribute his new product throughout the entire city because Denny himself wants to avenge his son against Brocker. He informs her that she is the only one who can communicate with them because she used to work within his gang, but Charles refuses, saying the matter isn't that simple, because Hanks, Denny's right-hand man, might finish them off. However, Gator makes her understand that her mission is to contact his lawyer and arrange with him for her to hand over Brocker in exchange for distributing the drugs in the city. At the same time, we see Brocker getting a new doll for his daughter Maddie to replace the one she lost. He asks her to get ready for her birthday and, if she wants, to invite all her friends from school. Maddie is delighted and asks him if she can also invite her teacher, Susan. Brocker laughs and tells her that Susan is actually the one organizing the party. That night, Charles is waiting for Denny's lawyer in front of the nightclub he frequents. However, as soon as he sees her, he wants to spend the night with her. But Charles then hands him Brocker's file, leaves him, and walks away, leaving the lawyer stunned. He quickly goes to visit Denny in prison and presents him with the file he received from Charles. The moment Denny sees Brocker's picture, he becomes enraged and tells the lawyer they must find his location as soon as possible to get revenge on him. In the morning, Brocker takes his daughter to school, but finds Jessie there, dropping off her bully son. He calls out to them so his daughter can invite him to her birthday party, and he agrees. They both enter their classroom together. At that moment, Brocker apologizes to Jessie for what happened, and she accepts his apology and leaves. When Brocker returns home, he talks to his friend, Tito, and tells him what happened with Jessie and her husband Jimmy. Tito tells him that Jimmy is actually scared of his own shadow, and it's impossible for him to be the one who broke into his house. He reveals that the only tough guy in that family is Jessie's brother, and it's highly likely he was the one who did it. Tito advises him to let it go, since he has made peace with them, because Gator is an extremely dangerous person nicknamed the Alligator. Brocker is surprised to learn that Gator always lives underground, and that the officer he met earlier actually works with Gator in his illegal activities. Let's leave them for a bit and go to Gator, who is calling Charles to check that she is at the bar and will carry out what they agreed on. We see Denny's gang arriving at the bar, and their leader, Hanks, sits down with Charles, who is terrified while talking to him. Hanks asks her what she wants in return for telling them Brocker's location. She says she wants to distribute drugs throughout the entire city. Hanks laughs and threatens her, saying if she thinks about playing him, he will kill her in the worst possible way in front of her family. Meanwhile, Maddie's birthday party begins, and Brocker is very happy for his daughter, who has grown a year older and now has many friends. That night, we see Gator going to his sister's house to let her know he will avenge her from Brocker. However, she is actually in a desperate state and quickly asks him for drugs, but Gator refuses to give her anything, grabs his stuff, and leaves. We see Brocker, who cannot get over the fact that someone broke into his house and even stole something from him. Because of this, he decides the next day to go to the restaurant where Gator hangs out. He is surprised to find Charles sitting with him there. He goes to talk to him politely, telling him that the person who broke into his house is a cowardly kid and that next time he will be waiting to kill him. We understand he did this to gauge his reaction and become certain Gator was the one who did it when Gator tells him his farm is beautiful. Brocker threatens him, saying if he ever thinks of getting near his daughter or harming her, he won't hesitate for a moment to finish him off. He then leaves him and walks away. Afterwards, Brocker decides to go to Gator's warehouse, whose location he learned from his friend Tito. There, he finds the equipment and materials Gator uses to manufacture drugs. A hellish idea comes to him. He unscrews the light bulbs in the warehouse and starts filling them with highly flammable kerosene, then puts them back in their places. But then, he hears the sound of his cat in the warehouse. When he reaches it, he is surprised by one of Gator's men threatening him with a gun and asking, "Who are you?" Brocker immediately knocks him out with a single blow. He then goes to get his cat so he can leave. However, suddenly, he receives a violent blow from an iron pipe to his head, knocking him unconscious instantly. After a while, when he regains consciousness, he finds the men surrounding him, wanting to get their revenge on him. But Brocker takes advantage of their stupidity and manages to free himself. He starts breaking their bones one after another until he overpowers them all. After that, he returns home and asks Maddie to pack her clothes quickly because he got a good job in a neighboring city and they have to leave. But Maddie refuses because she doesn't want to leave her school. Brocker forces her to obey his orders, and she becomes very sad. Meanwhile, Hanks arrives with his men at Gator's house and asks him about Brocker's location. When he learns from him the location of his farm, he takes Charles with him, threatening to kill her if they are being played. We see Tito, who arrives at Brocker's house with a huge truck to transport the horses to his farm, as Brocker had requested. Hanks is on his way to Brocker's house. As soon as they arrive, he orders Charles to wait there until they finish him off and return. We see Brocker taking out a bag full of weapons and taking a pistol from it to defend himself. At that moment, one of Hanks's men starts moving around the house, but Tito attacks him, beating him until he kills him. Then Tito runs to his truck and starts honking the horn frantically to alert Brocker that a gang has invaded his house. At that moment, Brocker goes to his daughter Maddie and tells her to quickly go down to the basement, call the police, and inform them that a gang has attacked their house. Then he goes to get his shotgun and waits for the gang to enter the house before opening fire on them. A very fierce battle begins between between them. However, with his skills, Brocker manages to kill them one by one until only Hanks, their leader, is left. But at that moment, Maddie, terrified, runs out to look for someone to help her father in this fight. Unfortunately, she only finds Charles in front of her. She pleads with her to help her father because the gang will kill him. We return to Brocker and his fight with Hanks, which lasts for a long time because Hanks is extremely strong, but Brocker barely manages to subdue him and ultimately kills him. However, he is shocked to discover that Charles has kidnapped his daughter Maddie, taken her on a boat, and escaped with her from the place. But then, the police officer arrives with his men at Brocker's location and asks him what happened. Brocker tells him that Denny's gang attacked him and tried to kill him and his daughter. He asks him to get an ambulance for his friend Tito before he dies from blood loss. At that moment, Maddie calls the police again, and the officer then asks Brocker to talk to his daughter on the radio. Brocker calms her down and asks her to tell him a distinctive landmark so he can locate her. He then quickly moves in the officer's car to rescue her. At that moment, Gator calls Charles and asks her to meet him at his warehouse because he doesn't understand what's happening. As soon as Charles arrives there, Maddie calls her father and tells him they have stopped at an abandoned warehouse. Brocker realizes she is at Gator's warehouse and quickly heads there. The moment Gator meets Charles and learns from her that she kidnapped the girl, he gets angry with her and decides to kill Maddie before they all end up in disaster. But at that moment, Jesse arrives at the scene and asks him if he had anything to do with what happened at Brocker's farm and the kidnapping of his daughter. He lies to her, saying he doesn't know anything because he was at work all day. However, Charles was trying to help Maddie escape so he wouldn't kill her. Jesse hears Maddie screaming and recognizes her voice. She then goes to turn on the lights to see what is happening, and at that moment, the entire warehouse ignites due to the kerosene. Gator is shocked as all his supplies turn to ashes before his eyes. He sees Jesse walking away with Maddie and quickly stops her, demanding she get out of his way because she is the cause of all this. When she insists on taking Maddie away from him, he shoots her in the stomach. He then takes Maddie to his car and drives away from the scene. But Brocker sees him fleeing with his daughter Maddie, so he chases after him in his car to catch up. We see the police officer heading with his men after them to arrest Gator. But at that moment, Brocker's car flips over on the bridge. We see Gator getting out to look for Brocker in order to kill him. However, Maddie screams and pleads with him not to kill her father. Gator threatens her with the gun, telling her to get back in the car so she doesn't witness what's about to happen. We see Brocker, who took advantage of Gator's distraction, attacks him with full force, brutally smashing his face until he beats him unconscious. He then points the gun at Gator's head to kill him, but as soon as he looks at his daughter and sees her terrified, he completely calms down and throws the gun away. He goes to hug his daughter Maddie, reassuring her that everything will be okay. He then takes her to his car and drives away. A short while later, there is a visit to Denny in prison, but he is shocked to see that the visitor is Brocker, who tells him, "I'll wait for you to finish your sentence, and we'll meet outside to settle our matter once and for all." And here, my dear friend, our film comes to an end. I hope you liked the summary. If you did, please give us a like and share the video, and leave us your opinion about the film's story along with a nice comment. And of course, if this is your first time seeing us, subscribe and turn on notifications so you get all our future content.